Welcome to the Fantastic Story Society, a place for the most unusual stories and storytellers, including your masters of ceremony, Max Tim and Scott Marcus.
Two blankets on. Oh,
We're on. We're Scott,
everybody.
You're on. Welcome to the Fantastic Story Society. I'm used to saying Short Story Society because we've been doing a lot of short story, fantastic stuff, if that is such a thing. But welcome, everyone. My name is Max Tim. We have Scott Marcus with us. And who is this person sitting between us?
Well, first off, a welcome back to the show, because we have not inducted you officially yet, but you've been on with Yakov Smirnov. You were my
Yeah.
co-interviewer
Yeah.
Yakov Smirnov played up in the Crystal Grand.
Great dude.
Very excited to call into session this meeting of the Fantastic Story Society to induct our newest member. We're going to talk about a little bit of everything today, because Michael does a little bit of everything.
Arguably too much.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. That's why you're on the show.
We're talking music in front of, or on stage and behind stage, and owning the stage and making new stages.
Fair.
The music industry overall, making money or living as an artist involves some side hustles sometimes, and there's one that you are really into.
Oh my God, yeah.
And then we're going to finish it up the way we love to finish these. No matter who we're talking to, we always ask if somebody has a ghost story. And I know you do. And I've intentionally avoided you when you started talking about it, because I want to save it for this.
Yeah.
So most people know you as Michael Alexander of the band Big Whiskey.
Okay.
And I don't really know your origin story as a musician, as a songwriter, and getting on stage the first time. So I guess just take us through that.
Okay. So I loved music as a kid, but in fifth grade, I played the saxophone, and I couldn't read a note of music, and it just didn't make sense to me. So I would memorize what it was supposed to sound like, then I would go to band and I would just play it, but I couldn't read it, and I had no idea. I would just have to listen.
How
to
old were you?
Fifth grade.
Okay.
And I quit after 1 year band, and I was like, all right, well, there's band.
Okay.
Right. And they're like, you were one of our best. And I'm like, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I'm done with this. I was a baseball player, wanted to be in, wanted to play professionally, like we all did. Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I grew out of that really quick.
Okay.
I can't hit the ball to save my life.
Well, it was the only, I played basketball, I played football, I ran. It was the only sport that came very naturally to me, right? As a sophomore, I batted over 600, or as a freshman, I batted over 600 on varsity. As a sophomore, I won the batting title over 400. We bat 600 when you only have 12 at bats as a freshman.
Yeah, right.
Pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
But I had a football accident where I was playing linebacker, and I hit a fullback that was about twice my size, and dislocated the arm and had to have it rebuilt. And I kept playing sports until my senior year. I would try to throw from left, and it would come out. When I try to throw it. Yeah. And then you're like, you gotta,
awful.
So I had it rebuilt. Got to college. Was going to work my way back up. I was on the college baseball team. I was rehabbing the arm, when they started two-a-days. And I stayed on the team, for about 6 months, but then it was just like, this is a lot. And there's people with two good arms that never make it anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I accepted my fate and stepped away from baseball and decided I was going to teach myself how to play guitar. So still can't read a note of music. After 6 months, I had a bunch of songs that I had written, and I came out with my first acoustic album. And in a twist of irony, my now wife, then just a friend, right? We've only been married a couple of years. We've known each other 25 years. She interviewed me for the Edgewood College paper about my release of, just a, side note of my acoustic record. Then, I did that for a while. I went and I worked at the Guthrie Theater for a year in Minneapolis, did tech. The only jobs I was getting, I suppose I missed the part where I was also a performing arts major with an acting emphasis, got a Bachelor
really?
of Science in acting. Decided that I look terrible in tights and I hate jazz hands. And the only jobs that pay in acting are musical theater, and it just wasn't my jam. You know, like it was not for me. So I stuck a fork in that. Tried doing music in Minneapolis for a year while I was up there, and it was just hard to break into, and nothing really panned out.
By the way, I think the Guthrie Theater famously haunted, isn't it?
I believe it is. I didn't, I think
I've heard of the Guthrie.
when I was at the Guthrie Theater, it was for a year. I was a pup. I was probably 24 years old, something like that. I was making, $6 a year, and I was sharing a place, like you do in a big city with two other guys that were also struggling. And so I didn't have a lot of fun in Minneapolis because I was poor to the point of where it's not for you. I had a side hustle, so I was trying to play guitar. Then we lived in Uptown, and just on the other side of the really rough part of town, you'd argue, I guess, the ghetto. And there was a dollar store in the ghetto where they used to have Bart Simpson cereal. Right. I think I told you this story.
I don't remember this. No.
I would drive my Toyota Camry that was like an 83 or something. Like it was barely working.
Yeah.
When I moved from Minneapolis, I traded it for a 12-pack of beer.
Oh my God.
So this is a true story. But to make ends meet, I would go into the ghetto and I would buy Bart Simpson cereal for $1. And then they would, there was a high-end toy store in Uptown where they sold it. And I saw that one day, and they would sell it for $15 a box. Oh. So I would buy it for $1, and then I would get $5 a box for it, and they would sell it for $15.
Oh my God.
And I did that with Spider-Man cereal and Bart Simpson cereal. And, I would just, because it was on overstock, and they were just, poor people like me. That's what we were eating. The rich people are like, look at this cool cereal that we can put on the shelf.
Oh my God.
And so that's kind of how I made ends meet. And the music just wasn't working out. But the Guthrie was more of a pain in my butt because I ran their spotlights and I did their tech, whatever the show called for, I would do it. Okay. But then I also, to make ends meet, would sell their tickets. And it was, if you've never done cold calling, it is, people are trying to eat their dinner, and I'm like, hi, this is Michael Nybroden with the Guthrie Theater. I'm calling to see if you would like a ticket package. And they're like, don't call here.
Yeah. I know how hard it was. I worked at Zany's Comedy Club in Illinois. Yeah. And I would call people up on our mailing list to give away tickets, and that was difficult.
Right.
So that was
I tried selling subscriptions. So the Guthrie was never the bright light of hope for me that it was for the people that come and visit. It was just like, this is real rough. Like I hate everything about this. Yeah.
I think anybody who works in the arts has had that job.
Sure.
It just takes a while to kind of get your feeding and your footing and what's going to work out for you. So all of that being said, I didn't enjoy the Guthrie a lot. I didn't explore it. As soon as my shift was done, I would run as fast as I could.
To get cereal.
Yeah, to get cereal. I had to get my Bart Simpson cereal, and so I could, have enough money to still be poor.
Right.
So heaven forbid, I had big ideas of what Minneapolis was going to be for me. The music, I played some open mics. I just couldn't get anything that was really working out for me for music. Yeah. Right. And I had this Toyota, right, that in the winter months, I would have it on the street because we didn't have parking. But they will ticket you $75 a day for alternate side parking in a town that has no parking. Yeah. And when there's a blizzard, there's nothing you can do. And so it was like $1,500 in tickets. And some days they would give me like 3 tickets a day.
Oh my God.
And I went down to, City Hall and I was like, hey, I'm getting these tickets. And they're like, oh yeah, well, you don't have proper, tags on your, I said, well, it's, Wisconsin car and I have it. And they're like, well, we're going to keep ticketing you. So you better figure it out. So instead of paying it, I moved.
Right. Yeah.
It's like,
Oh.
So you're still not welcome back in Minnesota.
Minnesota, if you're watching, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
So I moved back home, and you know, I started playing open mics again.
And where was home?
Well, Barneveld, Wisconsin, but Madison, Wisconsin. I
Okay.
moved. I think I probably moved in with my parents for a couple months while I,
Sure.
I started working at the YMCA, managing youth centers,
Okay.
for the YMCA. So, and so I did that. And while I had that job, I was teaching myself how to play guitar. We put together a band. It was called the Michael Alexander Band.
How'd you come up with that?
It was some creativity. And we started playing the college circuit, and we were only, we were 25 years old. And my drummer was only 20. And we would play places like Luther's Blues, and we would sell them out, not because we were good, but because when you're between 20 and 25 and you have a band, at that time, all your friends are just like, this is the coolest thing. And we love to drink beer,
Right.
and our friends on that stage, and they're terrible, but we're going to go see them.
Right.
And it was, and so, oh yeah, we were awful. I
But
learned
you were good at bringing an audience.
We're
Yeah.
and as I develop on my path in the music industry, I start to realize how little of it has to do with actual talent, right? Especially at the base level. It's more about, can you sell beer and put butts in seats,
Right.
because it's a business. It isn't. It's not an industry where it's, you're not going to make money for high fives. No club owner is going to be like, hey, here's $1,000. You guys are so good. It made me feel so nice.
Right.
Yeah.
I lost, there was only 2 people and I lost my butt, but man, you sure made me feel good.
Yeah, no, it's never
Nobody can, you can't pay your bills with applause.
Right.
Yeah.
So we kind of just rested on that for a couple of years, where I was like, we're really terrible and it's okay. And then we got a little older and people stopped coming out, and we had to morph and get better. We met this producer named Giladair Reese, who had worked with Tom Cochran and Alanis Morissette and the Bare Naked Ladies up in the Ironworks. Amazing woman. She actually is the one that came up with the name Sand.
Okay.
And so we had she was producing our record. We were all ready to record the first Sand record with our producer. And the day we were supposed to go into the studio, week before we were supposed to go in the studio, our drummer quit because he didn't like being told what to do.
Oh my
boy.
God.
A lot of times when there's changes, that's the thing about, people are like, well, what does it take to actually, get a record deal? And, what is the difference between being a garage band and a sign band? Well, one of the things that it takes is can you take a note?
Yeah.
Can you still, understand that, yes, it's my song, but to make it that it is more, friendly to the masses, you have to be willing.
The producer
to
is
work
almost as much of an owner. Yeah.
Sometimes more
Yeah.
important, right? Like a good producer can, literally take a lump of clay and, turn it into, the David.
Yeah.
Right. There's producers that are that good.
And Max, just so you know, Max is a script consultant. So he works with writers. He gives notes.
Giving notes
Yeah.
for a living.
So you understand, how important it is,
Yeah.
right?
It's necessary.
And so we started working with that. We got the drummer quit because he didn't like being told what to do in our sessions. So we got this 20-year-old kid, which is Paul Zander, who's now been with me for 25 years.
Yeah.
Roughly 23, 20, something like that. He's going to be, 23 years. He said he's now been playing drums with me longer than he has not been playing drums with me in his life.
Yeah, sure.
So,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But the day we were supposed to go in the studio, I found out that my guitar player moved to LA. Didn't have the guts to tell me because it was my high school best friend.
Oh my God.
And he was scared to tell me. And he went out there to be, he wanted to be an actor. And he was on a dating show and he just left.
Oh my God.
And then the bass player was dating the producer, and they got into an argument.
my
And so the day that we were supposed to record the first Sand record, it was me and the new drummer, and we met at a Culver's, and we sat down, and I didn't have a band, and he looked over at me and said, well, looks like I'm second in command now. He had been in the band for 2 weeks.
Right.
And that was 23 years before. But we kept the name Sand. We did, try to get to where we're at now because there's a lot of backstory. But we did a lot of big shows. For about 10 years, we played, in the active rock scene a lot, with bands like Korn. We toured with bands like, Wayland and, Royal Bliss and, Boba Flex and a lot of the bands that are still, Pop Evil and, a lot of the bands that are still, very active today. Great bands, right? We went down, we recorded a record with Jesse Dupree from Jackal. The Load Your Guns record. And we went down there. Jeff Tomei produced that record. It was in Kennesaw, Georgia. Just as a side note, if you guys have ever been to Kennesaw, it is the only place in the United States where, as the head of household, you are legally bound to have carry a firearm in your home because they had such a problem with crime that instead of taking everybody's guns, which wasn't working, they decided that everybody who was of sound mind, if you were, special needs, or they're not going to make you have a gun, there had to be a gun in the household, and crime plummeted because you're going to not break into somebody's house if you're 100% sure you might get shot. And so next thing you know, crime, just poop, so that worked out for them. But a very strange place, right? Kennesaw, Georgia.
Yeah.
And so we did our Load Your Guns record there, which seemed very fitting.
Yeah.
So if you're wondering where's the tie-in, so that was the name of the record. And then instead of pushing that record, we were going to take it at rock radio. I went out on a solo tour a few months after we were getting ready to release the record, and it wasn't heavy enough for JJO, and we didn't know if we were going to get it picked up. And I realized that after 10 years, I just wasn't making money.
Yeah. WJJO is a Madison hard rock
WJJO.
radio station. We're national. So
it is. JJO, as someone who has toured all over the country, several radio stations and whatnot. So Hard Drive XL is associated with JJO, and that's the nationally syndicated monster and hard rock radio, right? It's Hard Drive, and the same guy that now owns that is Randy Hawk, who also runs 8 other radio stations in JJO.
Okay.
So in the rock world, it's that word carries a lot more,
sure,
weight nationally than most, radio stations that are local would.
Sure.
But it wasn't heavy enough.
Yeah. Okay.
And we went in and we did a bunch of remixes, and they're like, yeah, it's still not heavy enough. And I was like, well, that's not me.
Sure.
And after 10 years, we owed money on the van. We owed money on the PA. We owed money to all of the records, that we had 3 records. And I was the one that was writing all the music, and I was booking the music, and I was buying most of the gear. And you get to that point where you're like, I am so upside down.
Yeah.
But we split the money from the shows 4 ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just wasn't, it was too much for me. Yeah. So I broke up the band and I went solo. And when I was in the Carolinas, I signed a 1 record deal with Jeremy Scruggs. And he had a studio a little ways out of Clemson. And I came out with the Gas Station Sunglasses record. And then I was solo. I restructured the band, and everybody became employees. And now I hire all of the bandmates, like your amazing wife who plays, and Michael Alexander and Big Whiskey in 2011 turned into what it is now, which is a Southern rock band, part country, part hard rock. It just kind of the music it's more what flows freely from me, where I'm more of a little bit country, a little bit rock.
Sure.
It's music that I really believe in. You know, it's a good solid sound and much easier to digest than
Seriously. I think the fans probably think that too. I mean, you have a much broader base of people that would be listening to that.
Yeah.
Well, and as we are the Fantastic Storytelling Society, so we talk about all the different ways people can tell a story, and your songs tell stories. I think a lot more than a lot of other types.
Do you write all of your songs?
Yeah, I do write all the music. I have done some co-writes with people. It's always hard for me because my songs are such a personal thing and they're almost spiritual. And, I'm the lock yourself in a room, write the song. I'm more of a vessel than I am. It's so strange, whether you believe, whatever your beliefs are, there's an energy in the universe that's higher than us. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I feel that I'm just tapping into that. Sure. And I'm more of a vessel than I am actually the end all be all of the artistic.
How many iterations do you go through of that song though? It can't just be, boom, I got it. This is it.
There's certain times where it just, okay.
All right.
Like I've been in the car and I pull over and I just
when it strikes.
Yeah, when it strikes.
Go with it.
And there's other times where you're beating your head against the wall and the chorus doesn't come for 6 months.
Yeah, right.
And those are usually the ones that don't make it to the record because they seem cool, but you're like, well, if it wasn't cool enough for me to, figure it out now.
Right.
At this same time that all this is happening, right? We know that, again, we talk about side hustles. While I'm playing all these shows, in probably 2005, I'm trying to get my band booked. And I'm making all these friends with all these other bands. And I started booking my friends at this venue called the Club Tavern. And I would book it for a bar tab, $20 bar tab. I would book their bands, every band I booked, they'd give me a $20 bar tab,
oh my God.
Which at that time for me, that was great. I didn't have beer money, so now I didn't need to worry.
And we're not in LA, so $20 actually is more than one drink.
Gets you somewhere, because it is Madison. It's the dollar goes a little farther,
especially in 05.
Yes, right. Not today. It might be 2 drinks now.
Yeah, right.
But back then, right, different times. And so I started booking Thursday nights, and then we would host an open mic, and somebody got fired for doing drugs. And they asked me, they said, have you been the one booking the music the whole time? Because somebody was getting paid actual money, but I was just doing their job.
Yeah.
And so I started booking there. I booked there for 8 years, and then I started Sandman Music Agency. And at one point, I think I had 12 different clubs.
Wow.
Where I was booking all the music for them.
How does that work? So does the venue reach out to you and say, we need this on this date, and you go find the people?
Yeah. So I would have their calendar, right? So I would have all the calendar of all the clubs that I was in charge of the music. And then we had some big clubs and we had little clubs, and then we'd have people that would call me and, want me to help supplement their income with, this band or that, can you do this date? I'm doing this festival. And, so a lot of smaller stuff. And then at the same time, I started helping out with an event called the world's largest Brat Fest.
Oh yeah.
It is an event that
I think that's where I met you the first time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Wendy was playing.
Band was playing there.
Yep. I knew you looked familiar, so I'm sure that's what it was. Yeah. It's you and 150,000 of my closest friends.
Right. It's a huge party, man.
Yeah. So that party had started as Tim and Kevin Metcalf, their dad, who owned Metcalf's grocery stores. It started out in their parking lot as a customer appreciation thing. Huh. And they, I think, brats were a quarter and Pepsi was 10 cents.
Oh my God. And when was this?
Would have been 40 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So I was 7 and not helping out. Or 6. I was 6. Yeah. And so I've been with them now, I think about 17 years. It was more of a local event when I started. And then I started bringing all my friends that I had been touring with and playing, with all these shows, or we've been opening with, and we started bringing in these bigger bands. And then we got this crazy idea that we were going to book Bret Michaels. I came up with this idea, and I went to the guy who put it together, and it was that time. I think he's now 150,000, but I think I got him for $28,000, which at the time was a steal. And it really overnight, it changed it because it's free. Now, some artists aren't that great on a hard ticket, but on a soft ticket where people don't need to pay, oceans of people. There's probably, immediately at his stage, like, 9 to 11,000 people somewhere in there.
So how does the venue then, or just the organization, make money if it's a free?
It's a free event, and we've donated $2.5 million to charity.
Okay.
Through sponsors, brat sales, and beer sales.
Okay. Right.
Johnsonville donates a portion of the brats. Now we've grown so much, they don't donate all the brats. We have to buy some of them, but they'll donate a portion of them, and then we use that money to pay the bills and to pay the artists.
And this is the largest free music festival, at least in the Midwest, if not.
At one point, there was a bigger one in Germany, but we are very close to the largest. We are 100% the largest free brat and music festival in the world. I can promise you that without getting into any sort of legal issues. And at one point we had 4 stages and over 100 acts, but now we've trimmed it down to 3 stages and 75 acts. We found that that's a little bit easier to manage,
That's still a lot. Even the parking's free.
We average around 50,000 people a day, and the problem is you get much bigger than that, and it just the space we're in, it's hard to have more. Like when we have our headliners, I can't really fit more people on that island without sinking it.
No, seriously.
And then this is a good segue. I'm glad we're kind of getting into to Bratfest now, because there's a recent announcement. Because for the first time in 40 some years, I can't believe it was the first time that there's been weather issues.
Almost
past spring.
Well, there's always weather issues, but like for only a few bands.
Or
4 bands didn't get to play, or even 10 bands didn't get to play. Or this time we had a complete rain out on Friday and Sunday. We had to move all of the music into the Dane County Coliseum. So it was 13 hours of complete nonsense for us. I was on the phone with, agents in Nashville and the bands and the sound companies and the city and the county and the police. And, we're doing, all of the, and not just me, my whole, Tim and Kevin and Jeff, and we're all, working all this out with everybody. We pulled off in 13 hours, what usually takes a few months it's a union room. So there's rules. You can't, everything has to come from the ground. So we couldn't, you can't even turn on a light. Right. And because it's a holiday weekend, maneuvering this, we had to take, there's an incredible sound company we work with called IntelliSound. And we had to take, they broke down the grand stage outside, which takes 2 days to set up. They brought it to zero, rebuilt it in the middle of the night, and the next day had it all built and ready inside from the ground up because we couldn't hang any lights. And then we did Neil McCoy, Tiger Lily Gold, Royal Bliss, Scotty Austin. It was a great event. But we were facing well over $500,000 in loss, and we brought it down to somewhere 150,000 in loss, somewhere in that ballpark. My goodness!
Because there wasn't anybody to buy brats, basically.
Well, yeah, I mean, the problem is, and then there's other costs. You got to pay to,
you're paying the bands that got canceled too.
Yes,
they came out.
Yes, the bands. Yes, everybody got paid if they wanted to. Now we sent the checks, whether or not they cashed them, if they didn't play or not. But that's one of the reasons why we've been able to function so well. Is we always try to take care of the musicians, because I come at it as a musician. And it's important because musicians oftentimes don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
so
Terry Bass is fabulous storyteller.
Oh.
Thanks for sharing.
how you doing, Terry? So I think that I don't know where we got lost there, but yeah, the cost was a lot, right? So I do run, and I'm part owner of a music venue called the Crystal Grand in Wisconsin.
Right.
Dells.
I want to hear about this.
Yeah, it's a 2,000 person music venue. So, essentially, long story short, with that is I opened up for Rick Springfield there. Then I played with Joan Jett there. They found out that I, worked the Bratfest, and I came in as a consultant. Then I did some booking. Then I did all the booking. Then I became the VP of operations, and I became the COO. And we went from like a 12 show a year situation to now we're about 50 shows a year.
Wow.
And last year we were up for ACM we're one of the top 5 theaters in country music. Wow. From a venue beautiful venue. It just was being underutilized. Okay. So that's kind of the crib notes on that.
And where's the Crystal
That's
Grand?
in Wisconsin Dells,
right.
About 50 minutes out of Madison. Mm-hmm. So that's my baby, and this is my baby. And obviously Bratfest, Tim and Kevin, it comes out of their pockets when we lose money, because the charities get paid no matter what. We still paid. When I say we, Bratfest, which means Tim and Kevin out of their own pockets, still paid the $100,000 to the charities, even though they lost $150,000 personally.
Wow.
So, because the way that event works is we pay all the people to volunteer their time to help out, whether it's selling brats or cleaning up garbage or, pick a thing. It's when you have that many people, the infrastructure is outrageous. Right. Yeah. And then they come and we pay them like $10 or $12 to their charity for every hour. So even though they weren't working because it was rained out, they came and they're sitting in their cars in the rain and stuff. We still paid them.
Oh my goodness.
So Tim and Kevin are 2 of the most fantastic human beings you'll ever meet in the world. Like the kindness.
And they were the ones who founded Bratfest.
Their dad did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then Jeff Schrader is our marketing director, and he is literally, he's one of a kind.
Is this all these guys do all year long? Just plan Bratfest?
No, they run a grocery store.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So Jeff and he's the marketing director. I'm the entertainment director. We are working on it all year long. Like I start booking it typically 5 weeks after Bratfest. I start working on it again.
And when was the most recent one? This was June?
It's May. It's always Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, Memorial Day weekend. Okay.
Well, now we lost that money. So I don't have enough on my plate. Right. We decided that to make up some of that money, we were going to throw Brattoberfest at the Crystal Grand.
Oh my God.
Which will be September 20, 21, and 22. And we also felt bad because all those bands, I get about 1,000 submissions for Bratfest. Only 75 people can play.
Wow.
So if you've been picked to play, you might not be picked again ever, or, it means a lot to those bands. So I have them all booked for Brattoberfest at the Crystal, and that will be
literally 925, because you said you had 1,000 submissions.
Oh, no, the bands that got canceled.
Yeah. The canceled ones. The 925, unfortunately, they don't even always get emails because it's just too much for me.
Yeah.
I try, but that would
Yeah.
I can pull off a lot. I'm not sure that can happen.
Madison Square Garden can.
No. And so we're having an indoor-outdoor event at the Crystal. I'm donating 100% of the proceeds from the tickets at our venue to Bratfest for the charities. So, that's, the least I can do, because it has been, it's been such a gift being able to be a part of such a special event.
Wow. Right. How cool.
And so on Friday, it's going to be Montgomery Gentry, Tantric, Bucky Covington, I think Michael Brooks, the Trash Pandas. Saturday, it will be Boba Flex, Wayland. It'll be the last Sand Show with Wade. Wade's the bass player in Sand. He's moving to Virginia Beach, so that'll be our last show. There's a bunch of outside. We're going to have 20 different Oktoberfest beers. We're going to be selling brats. We're going to have some acoustic music, probably his wife at some point, I would imagine.
Well, and the band Sunspot will be also.
And Sunspot's actually playing with Sand and Boba Flex and Wheeling.
Nice.
Yes. And, oh my gosh.
So I've never.
Sorry,
been,
Mike. Sorry, Wendy.
I've never been to Crystal Grant. So how huge is the property? It must be big enough to be able to.
Yeah. So it's a 2,000 person music venue, inside seated.
Yeah.
And then we do a lot in our lobby. That's where he and I do our card show.
Oh, that's right.
Which is another business that I
show.
run.
Yeah.
But we have a very giant parking lot.
Oh, okay.
So we have some decent acreage, and then we're going to put up a beer tent in the front. We're going to have a jumbotron showing the Badger game and the Packer game.
Oh my God.
That's the competition always doing anything in football season in Wisconsin. Yeah.
So Friday and Saturday it'll be free outside, and then after 5 o'clock it is a paid event inside, and all the ticket sales, and then half of all the 100% of the brats goes to Bratfest, 50% of the liquor sales, and 100% of the tickets. So because I'm not up for sainthood, we are keeping a little bit of money off the beer sales, because we still got to pay our bills.
Yeah, you're paying for the.
And I say
material.
after expenses as well, so after the bands are paid, if there's $100 in tickets, after all the expenses, then they get the $100 in tickets.
Okay, right.
So,
wow. Well, I want to know more about the theater itself, because if it's haunted, you need to tell us.
Yeah, we have heard that it may be. When I'm in there alone, getting ready for the card shows, you do hear noises, and not all of them are the ice machine. I'll promise you that. But nowhere near as haunted as we'll talk about the story of my house.
He's got a story at the end.
Where are we at time-wise? I know that I'm probably.
We're good. We could maybe get into side hustle territory.
Okay.
Speaking, this is a good segue too from the Crystal Grand card show,
and then we'll get into your fantastic story.
Yeah. So Crystal Grand, beautiful property. If you've never seen it, it's an old theater, 30 years old. It was the original builders kind of made it to be the same as a theater that they had seen in Branson.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous old theater with white pillars, in the front, and it's a little too purple. It kind of looks like Prince designed it when I go in. Like all the seats are purple, and but I'm a Prince fan, so it's okay. He's
a legend.
He's definitely on my Mount Rushmore, so it's okay that I run a Purple Palace.
Yeah.
All right.
So, but Tom Lyons is the other owner, and he and I, he's the guy that brought me in. Incredible human. Love Tom. He is the only reason why, I'm there, obviously. And we bought it from Todd Nelson and Tom Deal. Tom Deal passed this week. He was a friend and a mentor. Rest in peace, Tom. That was brutal. That was very tough.
Wow. I didn't know.
But we purchased that from this. We purchased the theater from them. We've been running music there for the last 7 years, but we were renting it. So we're no longer renting it, which is nice. And so, it's a gorgeous theater, 2,000 people. We typically a lot of legends have played there over the years, George Carlin, Willie Nelson, Merle Haggard, Kenny Rogers, Blake Shelton. We usually get people on the way up or on the way down. Or those people that just got caught in the just under arenas, but they just play theaters. Our bread and butter is a lot of, legacy, really cool classic country and classic rock. Like we do Styx and REO Speedwagon and Night Ranger.
Nice.
And then we do things like, on the countryside, like Dwight Yoakam, and we do Gary Allen every year. And, and then we also do up and coming people like Lee Brice and Ashley McBride, and, and then some of the 90s rock stuff like Everclear and Jim Blossoms.
Oh my God, Jim Blossoms.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's a cool vibe,
Cool.
And then, I'm breaking ground. Well, I'm not. I have another business partner as we talk about side hustles. We are currently this week breaking ground on a new indoor-outdoor venue in the DeForest area. I've been brought in by my friend Nick, who owns the Jet Room.
By the way, most people, when they say side hustle, I make this and I sell it on eBay. I'm breaking ground on a new venue.
You're building a building.
Yeah. I always got something going on.
That's a hustle.
Yeah.
Yes. So Nick, brilliant guy, friend of mine. I'm helping him with the music aspect. Designing the green room and helping with the stage design. It's going to be indoor, outdoor, about 250 inside, 350 to 500 outside. We'll have the big garage doors. There'll be a beautiful green room. You can always tell places that were designed by people who play music, as opposed to like, hey, the green room is in the basement. The end over there, you just gotta, it's behind the refrigerator. It's
I won't name them, but there's a great venue, and they built it with music. They knew they were gonna have live music.
Yeah,
and you slide that table over you, and you guys set up in front of the dartboard.
Oh my God!
You guys knew you built this. This is your own, but you didn't think about where the musicians would actually play, huh?
And we'll have there will be a box office for the Crystal Grand where you can get discounted tickets into Forest. We plan on running shuttles back and forth from the Madison area to the Crystal Grand. So it's exciting. Now this one at this point, it's still in its infancy because right now it's just grass.
Yeah, right.
There's a bulldozer out there, and all the paperwork has been signed, and the ink is currently drying. I've been told we are a go.
That's really
cool,
exciting.
man. Do you know what's gonna be called?
The Windsor.
The Windsor.
Yeah, and I keep saying DeForest. It's technically Windsor. Nick, I am so sorry. The Windsor in Windsor. But we've, it's one of those where you have a buddy and he owns this great breakfast restaurant, and I would go out there and, he would talk about his dreams and things that he liked. And he'd come up to my venue and then he'd talk some more. And, he wanted to have a brewery. And then I said, I'd like to have a music club. I don't know anything about it. And, all of a sudden we started, talking about these ideas. And, 3 years later, you're like, okay, well, I guess it's real now. Because the loan has been signed. Not on me, I'm Nick.
I don't need to get like a long answer to this, but that must not be an easy loan to get.
No, not in this climate, just because stuff is going like this. And so that's a credit to what a successful businessman he is in the business that he does there. Sure. And then you attach that with the fact that the Crystal Grand continues to grow in an economy where it's not easy.
He must have had a pretty robust business plan to show examples.
Yes.
This is not just a credit application that you
No.
No,
he's got a plan. He's got a good one. And part of that plan is, what Broadfest has been turned into and what the Crystal has been turned into. And having me on the music aspect, it does bring a certain amount of hope confidence to the fact that, we have a pretty solid, while it's a different idea, we have a solid idea of what works in the music business. Relationship based, and I'm lucky enough to have made relationships with so many incredible bands and agents and radio people and throughout the years. Other side hustles, we'll get to cards. This band, Power Takeoff, the drummer in Power Takeoff is Scott Tice, my backup drummer for years, dear friend of mine. I was a fan of his band growing up, the Weisenheimers. They had the song "Go You Packers Go Go," and he recently, a couple of years ago, came to me, and he had these songs he had started writing, but he was a drummer, and
well, that's not allowed.
Right. And they're real good songs, like real fun, just upbeat, country pop punk, really cool stuff. And I've been working with him quietly the last couple of years. We had him go and record with my buddy Scott Wilson in Colorado. Then Scott hooked him up with Steve Hutton out in LA, who was Kid Rock's manager for a while. The guy that really, took Kid Rock off the, put him where he is. And it just wasn't a great fit, right? It wasn't a great fit. And So my wife and I took it in-house a few months ago, and I started working the band as their manager, and she's doing their social media and the booking. And after 3 weeks, we got them signed to a record deal with Stryker and Virgin worldwide. So they're now distributing their music on
That's amazing.
Virgin
That
Music.
is.
So we're really excited. September 27th is the release date for their new album under the beautiful little Virgin record. So Stryker Virgin. So
Power Takeoff.
Look them up. Great band. So those are most of the side hustles.
But I want to learn about the cards.
Yes, except for my favorite one.
Yeah.
Yes, the one
Don't
that
tell all the friends you're just talking to about
being your favorite one.
We just took out a loan to build that better be your favorite one.
Yeah, well, this gentleman right here, we do a thing, Alexander Cards and Collectibles. It's trading cards that I like to buy, grade, sell, buy more, trade more. We do some some content videos on the Alexander Cards and Collectible, where we'll do mail days, or he'll do surprise me with card trivia.
Sure.
I'm the basketball football guy, he's the baseball guy. And it's I have somewhere right around 1 million cards now, between 750,000 and 1 million.
Oh my god!
Of not common cards, of like the cards, that like rookies and short print and autos and cards that matter. And then I'll take them and I send them off to PSA, grade them. Then we do a card show at the Crystal Grand in the lobby once a month. And then my wife does a flea market at the Crystal Grand outside.
That's great.
And Scott and I run a card show there where, everybody brings in their cards, and then we, buy, sell, and trade. And then Jeremiah, who in a tie-in here, is dating Tim Metcalf's daughter. And then Jeremiah does live breaking on site now, upstairs of the Crystal, which is
live breaking.
So it's
a live stream.
It's a live stream, and then you buy teams because sometimes the card boxes are so expensive.
Yeah. So other people will buy in for specific.
Yeah, it's essentially gambling that's legal.
Yeah, all right.
You're hoping to hit like a $500 card, but the reality is, best case scenario, you just don't lose everything.
Yeah.
So they're buying like
teams.
Teams meaning like a literal.
Like you buy. So if we bought, let's say we opened up a box of cards, and you bought the Brewers. And
a literal team.
Yeah, you bought the Cubs, and then I bought the A's.
Sure.
And every time one of those cards comes up, maybe there's 30 boxes on the table, and it's $10,000 worth of cards, and your team was 50, mine was 100, and his was $400. Each team is weighted depending on the checklist and what you can pull.
Yeah, right.
And so there's live breaking there where he's doing it live on TikTok, but then also you can buy teams at our card show from him. And then as your players come up, then he hands you the cards while we're doing live breaks.
So, but who's watching this on the stream?
All the people that are bought their teams in TikTok land, or in YouTube, YouTube or whatnot, or now Fanatics is the top site, and that's where I buy a lot of my high-end cards, because I'm not going to buy a $7,000 box of Flawless, but I might buy a team for $350 and hope that I hit something on that. Yeah, wild, huh?
I've never even heard of it.
It's a whole different world.
It is a whole subculture.
Yeah. I was huge into cards, of course, until like 1994.
Yeah, that's when
that was when cards were huge.
Oh, for sure. Now
overproduced.
Yeah, and now the problem is your base retail stuff. Best case scenario, maybe you have a few $100 cards and stuff. But there's now products where, like the Luka Doncic rookie patch auto, I think in National Treasures went for like $4.5 million. So
like that used to be reserved for like Honus Wagner, like
Yes.
old cards
Yeah.
that were
What is National Treasure? What do you mean by that?
it's
the
a
brand.
super high-end
okay.
brand by Panini that uses a lot of on-card autos and actual like the NFL patches or the logo man patches from the basketball jerseys.
So what makes it so valuable?
That there's only like some of those cards, they're either to 10 or to 5, or some of them there's only one in the world. Like I have a Prism black 1-of-1 rookie card for Jalen Duren. Well, it's the only card in the world. So if there's only one of them and and he ends up being a huge deal, then that card right now it's probably a $2,500 to $3,500 card. But if the Pistons make the playoffs, that's probably an $8,000 card.
It's amazing because you have to be so on top of what's going on in the sports world all the time,
right?
And I mean, it's fun doing these videos because I'm oftentimes interviewing you while we're doing them. Like, okay, why? Okay, that guy. I've actually heard of that guy, which sometimes depending on the sport, is rare for me. But he's, for whatever reason, is just not collectible.
There's very little rhyme or reason, much like, why, this movie's good, but I don't like the actor, like
right.
this team is amazing. Some of the people, like, it'll blow your mind. Arguably the best player in basketball, nuts and bolts player is, probably the Joker, right? From Denver, right? Denver Nuggets. Yeah, Djokovic. Yeah. But here's the thing. He's boring. No offense. Good dude, but he's not that collectible. So his cards just don't hold a great premium, even though he is just dominating. Now, Luka has so much personality and he's controversial and, everybody's got an opinion and Luka Doncic cards, they started at the moon and actually they've taken a little bit of a hit, but I foresee that those cards will go right back up once season, is in session. And Joker's had a better career.
Yeah.
Right. And somebody like Giannis, won a championship, incredible player. His cards just aren't worth that much right now.
That's wild.
And so this is profitable, everything that you're doing with the cards.
If I would buy less than I've been buying, I now have all of the means to just grade and sell everything. The problem is I am 12. And what I really I'm a very good businessman when it comes to knowing what to buy and what not, and when to sell and when to hold. The problem is I absolutely love trading cards. I'm a sports fanatic. I love breaking it. I love it just as much now as when I used to pull a Bo Jackson or a Ken Griffey Jr. when I was 12. And the problem with a lot of business people in the business world is once they get $100 in their pocket and they're successful in other fields, they just revert back to what they wanted to do when they were a kid anyway, which is what I'm doing.
That's why I bought the new MJ, my
Air
shoes.
Jordans.
There you go. Yeah.
I didn't have them when I was 11, so I said, fuck it, I'm buying them now.
I bought my first pair because I could never afford them when I was a kid. I bought my first pair of Jordans like 7 years ago. Same thing. I think they're actually on that shelf over there somewhere. But it was one of those things where like I could never afford these and my parents would not get them for me. And so I was like, I'm an adult now, so I'm going to buy Jordans.
Yeah, right.
That's exactly what it was.
And $15 Bart Simpson cereal.
I'm going to eat it.
Yeah, right.
I remember the one time we were poor. We were also hungry. And there was nothing else in the house one weekend when we had a bunch of that Bart Simpson cereal. And it was so hard to open up that box.
Yeah.
Because you're like,
I'm eating money.
This is literally how I'm going to get my beer money. It's like, what are you going to do?
So why aren't my old baseball cards worth any money?
That's it's the reason is some of them are. Okay. And when I say some of them, they're not. We all just have buckets and buckets of cardboard that we were excited about. Some of them, like the Ken Griffey Jr., unless it's a specific card. Now, there's a hierarchy, right? Like the Topps Tiffany, where it's more of the glossy, card as opposed to the paper.
Sure.
Like the Ken Griffey and the Topps Tiffany in a PSA 10. Well, that's a very great card. I think that's,
Yeah.
I think it's in the thousands.
Okay. Sure.
Now that same card in a PSA 10 in the paper copy, it's probably $500-$600 card. I'm not 100% sure.
It's still not that much money.
It's not, and then you drop down to the PSA 9, and I have a bunch of them. It's only a $70 card.
And PSA?
So yeah, as you were talking about grading cards,
Yeah,
PSA is the leading.
It's the standard,
And 10's
there's
the highest.
and a 10 is the
Yeah,
highest.
okay.
Now if you go back when it wasn't overproduced,
Yeah.
like a Mickey Mantle PSA 1, that is a card worth thousands of dollars, even if you had it in the spokes of your bike and it looks like your dog chewed on it, and your baby threw up on it.
Yeah.
It's still worth, $40,000.
The scarcity, right?
Yeah, because they didn't overproduce all of that stuff. But when we were growing up, there was just too much of it.
Yeah.
And it's such a weird thing because the cards during the times when sports are not popular, trading cards are not popular, have the most value. And if you look historically, when trading cards are popular, they overproduce everything and then it doesn't have the value. The thing that we're dealing with now is there are a lot of numbered cards and a lot of autographs and a lot of memorabilia cards. They've killed memorabilia cards because it's not game worn. So it'd just be like this. It just looks like a towel they cut up and they put into a card and they're like, here you go. There's, there's Aaron Judge. Did you wear that? No, but it's a piece of cloth and he's a human. So, here's a card. And the other thing is there's so many different parallels and serial numbers and people are grading so many cards that it's almost going to be death by too much grading and too many serial numbered cards, and where it was death by boredom. There was no inserts
because the parallels and the numbered cards created a more scarce item to chase.
Yes,
but now even that's so interesting. And so part of the equation, though, too, to be profitable, is figuring out what to grade because there's a cost to getting your card graded.
Yes, so I'm a member of PSA, which they always do specials. I only grade something on sale. That's always how I run all my businesses. Like, I run every business I have much like a person in a thrift store with $20. I never want anything. I just want the best stuff I can get for $20. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can get a pair of shoes that's pretty cool and this shirt and a hat for $20, and because that was a good deal. I never want a band. I always want to, like, maybe I want a country band, or maybe I want a rock band, or maybe I want a comedian. But I always want who's routed, who can I get the best deal on, what's the most profitable thing. I try to never want anything. I just want what's going to work out.
Just looking for the deal.
Yeah, I want to make sure that it can be profitable. Yeah. And the same thing with the cards. You have to, like, two things. You never want to buy high, no matter what, right? Yeah. And if you're buying a bunch of boxes, you have to look through. These days, if you're grading, you might have a base rookie card, and right now it's worth $30 raw. Okay. And then you send it in, and in a PSA 10, it's worth, let's say in a PSA 10, it's worth $90. But in a PSA 9, it's only worth $40. Well, if the value raw is $30, and the value to grade it after I ship it off, and the grading with my deal is like $18. By the time you get it back, if it's a PSA 9, you've just lost $10, where you have to know when to just sell it raw.
Sure.
And because a lot of times I've had cards, like I had a Kenny Pickett to 10 RPA. It was going for $5,000 raw.
Jeez.
So I expedited it, which cost me $155 to have it back in a week, and then I had to insure it, which was another couple $100, and then I was trying to get it back in a 10. Well, raw, it was worth 5 G's. By the time I got it back 2 weeks later, I want to say it came back in a 9, which was terrible, but not only that, in a 10 it was down to like 2,500.
Oh man.
So a lot of this is how quick can you get over the finish line?
God. When do we even
You're like, this is so disheartening.
Well, it's that, and also with a million cards in your, how do you even begin to
stay on top of it?
Yeah. When do you sell and anything?
Well, if you could use that I wanted to get this story out. There's
Yeah.
one card that you bought and sold for profit several times over.
Yes.
It was a basketball card, I believe.
Well, a couple times I've done that, but yeah, there's a Rui Hachimura that I bought, I graded, I sold for 100, then I bought it again for 60, then but there was a Jahmyr Gibbs rookie.
With the audience,
What's
with
that?
With the people in the background, the audience members at the game.
Oh yeah.
On the card.
Yeah, there was a John Morant card that I've
Yeah.
owned so many times.
Uh,
And I always buy it back when it drops again because there was a hip hop artist that had died and he was in the card, right? And then there was so the card went from a $5-10 card to $100 card. So I got it and I got it sold. I owned a couple of them. I think I sold them for like $50-60, right? Then it dropped back down to like the 10-15. Well, then 8 months later, they found out that the parents of, I want to say, Michael Orr, who the movie The Blind Side was about, they were in the audience. And there was all this controversy about how they treated him.
yeah.
And then the card went back up to the moon. Well, I sold it again.
Based on not the basketball player, but people in the background.
Nothing to do with that.
But that's just luck. You didn't know any of that was going to happen.
No, but John Morant was wildly collectible, still is. I hope that between the gun charges, and that's the other thing, you're at the mercy of these guys not doing something bad.
Yeah,
I have
so many people put a lot of money into Wander Franco.
I have a super fractor of his in a PSA 10. Now, I didn't buy it until after I started to hear that things were going south. And I'm like, well, he hasn't been charged yet. Then it started to look worse and worse and worse. And I was like, I don't think it's worth the $11 I paid for it. But one of the coolest ones I ever did where you talk about buy and sell.
Sure.
Jahmyr Gibbs for Detroit. Detroit's hot right now, so their cards, very collectible. I pulled in a break an on-card color match blue jersey card of his. I graded it. I sold it for $700. I got it back in a PSA 10. Sold it for $700. I bought it again for $80 the next week. Raw, and it's back at PSA to be graded again to start the whole process.
But this is a different literal physical card.
It's just the came blue card
Right.
Jahmyr Gibbs rookie auto. Yeah.
That's
So
wild. Just for the sake of time, we should get
we should want to do a story.
Absolutely, yeah.
I could talk about the baseball card shit all the time.
Yeah, clearly. I like it best when he puts me on the spot and makes me talk about what the top, players and sports are and stuff.
Sure,
That's always fun because I don't even know sometimes what I know until you put me on the spot.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Actually, the three of us, it's fun because I'm the baseball guy. You're baseball and football. And you're football and basketball.
Yes.
So we each kind of have some little bit of overlapping.
That's awesome.
But different specialties.
I know nothing about the cards.
No. But
Yeah,
still,
just
sports.
sports.
Yeah.
But you need to have a basic understanding of the players and the sports because the card market fluctuates. It's even more volatile than the stock market because if the CEO of Oscar Mayer or Microsoft sprain their ankle, the stock doesn't go down.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Yeah.
So, all right, ghost stories.
So you and Max again have something in common. And Max grew up in a haunted house in Bellarmine. Your haunted house story, did you were you a kid growing up there or was this later in life?
No, college. We were in college in Madison. It was an old house that we rented from Kelly Meyer, who was the owner of State Street Brats at the time, downtown. Have you guys know what State Street Brats at all?
I've heard of it, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's just it is a standard UW Madison, classic bar on State Street.
Okay.
One that kids have been going to for years and years.
Okay.
So he was the owner. We rented from him. There was, I think there was 5 of us, and, big old house, and you're all paying, $400, and I think rent each month is $3,000, and you're all pooling your dollars together.
Yeah, got 40 people.
Yes. It was like a clown car. And they come over and like, who's this guy? He's your roommate. Who's that? He's been on the couch for a month. I have no idea. So, Yeah, it was haunted. So we moved in. I'll give you is where are we at time? I can go as quick as I.
No, it's all right.
Okay.
It's all right. As long as you don't have to be out.
7
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah, I know.
7 minutes. Get there.
Did you
there, buddy.
know it was haunted before you moved in, or how quickly?
No. So here, but we had an inkling.
Okay.
So we moved in, and I'm not going to tell every story, but we'll hit the big ones that'll make you go, whoa. You know, there's always the big ones. If you're in a haunted house, you know, you have those triggers where people are like,
story.
holy crap.
Yeah.
So we moved in, and it was just like a Stephen King movie. It was a rainy, stormy night.
Nice.
And the lights were flickering. You know, we're trying to get in, and we're out in the rain, and we're, you know, a bunch of guys and moving their stuff in, and the lights keep flickering. And we get in the basement, and it looks like this. Looks like you know, like piles of somebody's stuff. There's a TV and a radio and a diary and somebody's wallet.
Weird.
And we're like, okay. And there's this little burlap sack hanging from the basement in the ceiling, and it's like just this weird little on a string, and then like looks like just a pile of burlap.
Okay.
Right? Turns out later it was a mojo to ward off evil spirits.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
That got pulled down at a beer party, and things went sideways.
Oh my God.
That was whatever that was protecting. It went sideways real quick.
Huh.
So that night, you know, you're kind of like, well, that's weird. You know why?
Yeah.
People don't usually leave without their wallet.
Yeah.
Right, seriously.
You know? And we start reading the diary, and the person in there had mental health issues, and they made her go live like from being in the place, it got worse and worse, and then they made her live in the shed out back.
Jeez.
Because she was having all these troubles, and you're reading all this stuff, and we were like trying to move in, and a head, like this bust, fell through the ceiling tile in one of the bedrooms, and it was carved out of soap. It just like landed, you know, in the bed.
Out of nowhere, just
well, they were moving, and you know,
Okay.
something got hit, and you know, and I was like, oh well, I hated that part of the day,
right,
you know,
right.
and you know, so just like you're kind of like the heebie-jeebies a little bit, right?
Yeah. Right.
And as time, you know, goes on, you know, weeks go by, we hear some noises, and you know, things are weird, and you know, people are saying, yeah, I thought I heard something in the basement the other day. There starts being two things in the house on the regular basis. There's always these dead snakes in the basement, like just, you know, not big, but like dead snakes,
Like regular garter snakes?
Yeah, like garter snakes,
What the
or
hell?
like, and it's gonna seem weird, but it has this like very reptilian vibe in the basement. Like you just feel like, you know, when you're like you're around a crocodile, and you feel like when a crocodile is looking at you, it's like he wants to eat me. You know, when you're at the zoo, you get like that, you know, like that cold stare feeling.
Yeah,
So
you don't know what to expect from them. You're like, you're going to make a move any second now, aren't you?
Yeah, and we had a couple of our, you know, I was in a like just a fun band that was just absolutely horrible, but it was basically a drumming circle and people screaming covers, you know, in the background. Band's a strong word, right?
Yeah, right,
And like my drummer would, him, and we had a drummer and a percussion player, and they're very, you know, hippie, you know, wear your own clothes and the hemp necklace, and they took mushrooms, and they like freaked out, saw all these, you know,
Downstairs in the basement.
yeah, creepy like faces in the drum head, and you know, and they, you know, like, hey, it's not good at your place, you know, and because we'd have these beer parties. Well, it started, the walls started leaking this copper color under the pictures. Like it would just, like you'd look up and there would be this like just red copper color on the walls. It looked like rust. It was in the front room we had all dressed up because we were theater majors. And we had partook in some cannabis sativa. And we had a bookie book, and we were poor and wanted to look for something fun to do. So there was the
book of spells.
Yeah, no, that would have been good. No, it was a coupon to go to JCPenney and have a family portrait.
Oh,
So
my God.
we all dressed up I was the mom because I had the beard and I wore the big Sunday best hat and the beard and I wore a dress. And then Tim Tripkosh, who owns the Breakwater, was the little boy and he had these big glasses.
That's
and
a funny idea.
And we went to JCPenney's, stoned to the bone. Not if my kids are watching, yeah.
Don't do drugs.
Sugar high.
Don't do drugs. We had too much sugar, right?
Yeah.
And we walked into JCPenney's and they lost their minds, right? Because we came in full costume.
Yeah.
And they just thought they were going with a family and we, never broke character.
Oh my God.
If you look at my Facebook page, you guys can probably put it up later. I'll show you the picture. You'll get a kick out of it.
Oh, my
started
God.
oozing this copper color over the pictures.
Oh, once you hung them up on the wall.
Once we hung them up on the wall. And then in my room.
I was going to say, wait a minute, this happened at JCPenney?
Yeah, JCPenney. Oh,
yeah.
Super messed up. They wanted to hang them up in JCPenney, and we took them all when we picked them up. We should have just let it be there forever, right? For all eternity, because it was so funny, just iconically silly, right?
Fun.
All good fun, right?
Yeah.
And my bedroom started oozing this copper right by my bed. I laid right against the wall, and then there was this oozing copper that would come down, and we. Went on and you start to okay, well that's awkward, right?
Would you clean it up and then it would come back, or you just
left it? No, it was there. And I mean we're college kids, so we'd clean it up once every couple weeks or whatever, right. So you're like, it's like, well, we started hearing some noises, right? And we're like, what is it, leaky pipes, or I don't know how that happens or whatever, a little bit, and well then. We all worked as DJs at the time, wedding DJs, which I do not suggest it. It's the worst job on the planet. And I've had them all. So it's not a good one. I mean, I've never been a coal miner. I'm sure that's worse.
Right.
Yeah, really.
But I've had a lot of bad ones. We'd come home and we'd hear all this knocking at 1, 2 in the morning. There's times where some of us would sleep in the living room because it was just unsettling, right?
Wow.
This went on for about the first year. And then there was these bumblebees. There'd be these bumblebees that we would find throughout the house. And there was one that was it was right on the landing. And I was bone sober, me and another guy, and the bee came up and he was just walking around, and it was like a big furry bumblebee. Yeah. And I'd be like, well, hello, Mr. Bee. He'd be like, oh, he'd raise his hand.
What?
He would walk, and it was the weirdest stuff.
Come on.
This is real stuff. We found it dead on one of the drum sets.
Okay.
And because one of my roommates
did it leave a note?
Yeah, it did. One of my one of my roommates moved out to that shed where the crazy person was living.
Yeah.
And the bee showed up dead on the drum set. Well, in the middle of the night, it came back to life. It was dry, crispy, dead. I promise you. All of a sudden, it's flying around the room when he's in there. So he's freaked out. And so this all, run-of-the-mill type stuff, right? This is the first year. Second year, we signed the lease, because it was cheap and it's hard to find and moving sucks, and you're like, it wasn't terrible. Well, that mojo got cut down at a party. Somebody thought it would be funny to throw it into somebody's truck.
Oh, boy.
And the wheels came off the bus. One day we were there and the oven turned itself on. And we heard gunshots in the house. Me and Tim Post, who's one of my he's half German, half Nicaraguan, about 6'7". He and I ran from the house and sat out in the front because we heard gunshots in the house and the stove turned itself on. We had trying to think of some of the other terrifying things. My college girlfriend and I were there, and where the copper was at, we heard somebody come into the house. And we thought they went into my roommate's bedroom, closed the door and everything. And all of a sudden we heard something in the attic, just then down the wall.
Oh, geez.
Oh, shit.
And then all of a sudden it's just boom, boom, boom. And we ran, because then we heard Dave come in for real. So somebody was in that room that wasn't Dave.
You're right.
And all of a sudden the walls, the ceiling went from the ceiling, it sounded like they were slamming chairs and there was no second floor. There was an attic.
Yeah.
And then it went from the attic into the wall.
Mhm.
And the wall started just smashing right where we were
Wow.
at. And we ran. And we weren't drunk or high. She didn't even smoke pot ever. She was a soccer player. We ran from the building, went to her house, and didn't really stay there unless we had to ever again. But there was other times where you're there sometimes. Well, obviously, I'm going to tell you why I shouldn't have been. So then it's the summer and we got a sublet, before this happened. So we hear the noises and all of the nonsense. But then I'm playing video games with one of my roommates in my bedroom. And all of a sudden we start hearing the knocking again. And then the TV goes from fuzz to TV to the video game to the fuzz to the TV. And then all of a sudden we start hearing.
Come on. I hope the microphone can pick that up.
Yeah.
And
In the wall.
Right where we had heard the knocking and everything before. And I look over at him and he looks at me and the TV's just going wild. Right.
If the TV wasn't doing that, I'd start to think there's some groundhog stuff.
Right.
with this.
Yeah.
But the fact that the TV was doing
Also
it is
doing
really
it.
Yeah. So the TV is going from,
Yeah.
and it's going, you remember the old ant races, I used to call them, like where it says black and white fuzz.
Oh, sure.
Right? Yeah.
Sure.
So it's going from like that to TV to video game. Like there's it's not a thing that should be
Right. Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah, right.
and then all of a sudden,
What in the world?
it's dusk. It's not dark yet. Him and I, grown men at 23 years old, grown-ish,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We're not
right.
9.
Yeah.
We ran down the stairs. We turned on all the floodlights outside in the front. And we're like,
Yeah.
The fact that you experienced it with somebody else.
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
that
All
helps,
of these stories, I'm only telling you the stories where there's 2 people in the room
Okay.
and people were sober.
Yeah.
Because the other stories, okay.
Right.
Like I told you, like the guy that, the guys that they took the mushrooms, they saw something in the drum head. It was we took mushrooms.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. You might have seen that at Walmart,
Yeah.
or
doesn't
like,
matter where.
yeah, it's because you were eating mushrooms, dude.
Right.
So we're out in about 10 minutes, right? We don't know what to do. You're just staring at, have you ever been in an experience so wild
Yeah.
with another person where you're just like, all right,
Reality is different now.
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like, I guess we stay out here?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, do we just, throw in the towel and go move in with our parents?
Right,
like you're
right.
you're trying to,
Sure.
Shit's
Wrap-
in there.
Yeah.
you're,
Right.
you're trying to wrap it around. And I was like, I guess it's that thing's house now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the stairs, it was a 2-story. After about 10 minutes, we turned all the lights on. We turned all the lights on the house. And we sat at the stairs. And we could hear it. It was now so loud all the way
What?
upstairs, and we could hear.
Come on.
Like, we're talking Ghostbusters stuff.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And I sit at the stairs, and I looked at Paul.
It was still doing.
We're still doing it. And I go, what do you want?
No.
And I yell, and I said, what? Literally, what do you want? And no more girls. And I stopped. And we looked into it. Now, I think there was a couple different things. I'll tell you this last story. It'll make sense. Because sometimes spirits, whether it's, there's demons and there's spirits. They're 2 totally different things, right? And there's different energy, right?
Sure, yeah.
Sometimes, and the easiest way to explain this is if you came in here and someone had taken a shotgun and done something bad right there, you can feel that forever.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It's resentful.
It's that energy never goes away,
Yeah.
right? So on a base level, almost everybody understands that. And there's a whole nother dimension to the universe. We just don't get it.
Mhm.
Whether it's your sixth sense, we've all had those feelings. You're like, oh, why did that come to me then? Or this,
Yeah.
so you got to break it down to but it's not all the same. Energy is not all the same,
Sure.
right? So this thing was a different entity, which I believe this last one, which will put shivers down your spine.
Mm.
So
Same house.
Yeah. We're sitting at breakfast. Dave, who was in the room.
This is post growl from the wall.
Yeah. This is it's around the same time frame. I can't remember this before or after, but this is kind of where we're like, yeah, we're not resigning. We're good.
Right. Yeah.
It's the summer. And the lease was probably up. If it was a summer sublet, is the lease up, in August, right? Or whatever. I don't.
Happy anniversary, by the way.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
Of this
So Dave got a subletter. His name was Chris. It doesn't matter, but that's who it was. And Chris and his girlfriend paid for the whole summer. And because Dave was going on tour as an actor or doing something, and so there was 3 of us sitting around the breakfast table. And it was Chris's first night. And he was staying in the room that was next to my room where I heard someone go in the earlier story. Right. And there was nobody in there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he looks white. Like either dude spent the entire night doing, bong rips and tequila shots, or things went sideways. And we're all eating our cereal, and he walks in, he sits at the table, he's like, "Why didn't you tell me?" What?
I do have chills already. Just
he's like, "Why didn't you tell me that what was in this house?" I'm like, "What do you mean, dude?" And and you're like, you don't want to sound like the crazy person. You're not like, "Hey, come sublet." I mean, there's some demons maybe, or a ghost, but could you beat $600 for the summer? I don't think so.
No, right.
He had prepaid.
Oh my God.
So he's sitting there, and we're like, "What?" He goes, "Last night we got home. What's her name and I?" And I can't remember who his girlfriend was. He said, "I walked into my room and I felt something walk in with me. And I felt it squeeze through the door with me, and I looked down, and there was a little girl covered in blood, a bloody child. And he walked through the door with her, and then she disappeared."
So he went the whole night without telling anybody this? He just
they left. Yeah, he came back for breakfast. Yeah. Oh, they didn't.
Oh, yeah.
So they stayed at her house one night. He paid, $600 for one night. He never came back to the house again.
I don't blame him one bit.
Yeah.
That was now we told Kelly this, and we didn't re-sign, and there was a couple that bought the house. And I went there for the open house, because they bought it from him and sold that house either a year and a half or 2 years later.
Yeah.
On the day that they had the open house, we went there because we saw that they had it coming. I was like,
yeah,
because I wanted, I know why you're selling.
Yeah.
And we went there, and the strangest thing is, the dandelion, the puff that comes off a dandelion.
Sure.
Yeah, the white.
Like the white puff.
Yeah.
You come into the neighborhood, and the day that they were selling that, in front of the house and all the way out into the street and behind the house, there was this much dandelion puff only in front of the house. Nowhere else. Just there. Like it all just gathered collected to that spot. And that was the last time I was ever in the house. We went in there, we walked through. Energy was still terrible. I don't know how long they sold it. I've never went back. But if anybody wants to know, it was 520 Brooks.
520 Brooks?
Yep. Brooks Street in Madison.
Okay.
You can look it up historically. There looks like there was some people that perhaps died there. We looked into the history of the mental illness. That person went crazy. I got ulcers that year. My both my other roommates had other health problems. One of them got Crohn's disease.
Jesus.
That year. The energy was energy matters.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
But yeah, that's that's the crib notes, right?
Good Lord. My house was haunted, but it wasn't get the fuck out on it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, your person was at least fully grown, covered in blood, not a kid.
Yeah, right.
but we think that there was at least two energies. The one that was the growling and the weird, the bee and the snake appeared to have been two totally different situations, and whatever the fight between good and evil, or we feel like there was spirits, and then there was perhaps something more
inhuman,
sinister, a more sinister vibe that maybe created the spirits.
Oh, interesting.
You know, where like people died and never left.
Oh, they weren't able to go.
They weren't because of whatever happened in that house.
Yeah.
It also was the mafia. Like the Chicago mob used that neighborhood because the Greenbush neighborhood and that Italian restaurant that it was an old town, it was settled by old Italian, Chicago families, and there was Chicago families, tied to Al Capone and other families that were in that neighborhood. So it's very possible there was some funny business.
I mean, the Wonder Bar is famously owned by the Chewy family.
Yeah.
And so,
so you understand
there's a very established Chicago connection.
Yeah, Chicago, they would kind of, use it as a, well, a lot of Wisconsin is like summer homes or get
Safe
away
houses.
from the city, safe house
Chicago
stuff.
North.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, incredible story, Michael. Stories.
Yeah.
And we'd love to have you on to hear the rest of the spooky stories.
Okay, all right.
Because we've got the Halloween season starting up here, so we might as well.
Well, we know what the address is. We'll knock on their door, see if we can do a live broadcast.
We could reach out and be like,
play some video games.
Wouldn't it be great?
Yeah. Recreate.
Any last promos or anything, Scott?
Once again, to reiterate, Brocktoberfest.
Yeah.
That's coming up.
Go to thecrystalgrand.com, buy tickets. Card show September 15th.
Yep.
There's every month you do the card.
Yeah, not always on the same date. We need to get better about that. We are going to do the card show through the winter. We're not going to do the flea market because it gets cold in Wisconsin.
Yeah, it does.
And the flea market's outside.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
But go to our website, crystalgrand.com, for more details.
All right. Nice.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you guys. It was a delight being on.
This was fun. Thanks everybody for watching. As usual, there are fantastic stories everywhere. So if you hear any, let us know, and you might be the next guest or inductee into our Fantastic Story Society.